I'm happy. I need to be wearing these. I'm very happy. In fact, I'm unbelievably happy now. 2,000 years ago, a whole different story. Well, how would you feel? Picture the scene. Work was busy. I remember the day because I finally finished Obadiah's dining table. Then Reuben asked me to build him a bookcase, so I made a start on that. And out of some odds and ends, I built a couple of mangers. It's always good to have them in stock. Never know when you're going to sell one of those. You know, good material's difficult to get hold of these days. So, reusing, recycling, it's always good. So it was a busy day. I remember I locked the shop up, heading home for my tea. Fiance pops round. She wants a chat. Joe, darling, take a seat. I've got something to tell you. Something to tell me. She wasn't joking. And I never expected that. Mary has got herself with child. Now, if you'd have asked me back then, I'd have admitted I was quite naive when it comes to the facts of life. But even I knew that holding hands and kissing, even on a regular basis, does not a baby make. So an explanation was requested in the nicest possible way and duly provided. Only I'm sorry I asked. Now, my first reaction was, I've got to end this relationship. I mean, come on. But I also wanted to think of somewhere I could send her where she'd be safe, because apart from the disgrace and the shame of it, the customary judicial response would have been a public stoning. And I love my Mary. And regardless of what she's been up to, I didn't want to see her badly hurt. But come on, do me a favor. Explanation? Explanation, she said. Visited by angels, oh yeah. One from the heavenly host, oh really? Chosen by God. And what was conceived in her was from the Holy Spirit. I thought she'd been on some other kind of spirit if she expected me to believe that one. But, looking back now, you might think I'm being flippant. Trust me, at the time, I was in deep despair. My Mary, my beautiful, innocent Mary, was pregnant. I feel guilty now for some of the things that were flying through my head, but come on. With the information available at the time, what would you have thought? It was shocking, difficult. Now, just while we're on the subject, the history books of your ancestors, yeah, you can sit there, yeah, it's yours, your history books. They treat me as somewhat in the background. I'm a bit insignificant. I'm only worth a few verses of Bible text. And have you noticed, every film about this story, I'm always played by the unknown. You notice that? Now, I'm not after a call up to I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. No, steady on. But once in a while, to be played by somebody famous would be nice. But you'll excuse me if up to this point, I'm looking at Mary's pregnancy in purely human terms. Look, I knew I hadn't touched her, so the only other possible explanation is someone else had. And that hurt. That cut really deep. I remember trying to, sort it out, decide what to do next, try and filter it somehow, and I thought, let's go to sleep, park it for a while, get a bit of breathing space. And that's when things took on a much more spiritual tone. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a visit from an angel. It was my first time. That was nice. The first thing he said? Joseph, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I was terrified. But he said, take Mary, take her home, take her to be your wife. Because what's conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit, and her son will save his people from their sins. Wow. What do you do with that? Mind-blowing. But you know, when there's so much going on in my head, but when everything started to settle down, do you know what the overwhelming emotion I had? Was relief. Relief that in a small way I was sort of included, that I'd had a visit as well. But more importantly, that Mary was in fact telling the truth. Innocence intact. Well, from then on, yes, there was some uncertainty, there was a little bit of fear, but you know, an overwhelming sense of privilege and joy that we had been chosen to bring God's Son into the world. Wow. So if your feelings ever go up and down at all, remember my emotional roller coaster. You know, from despair to relief, from panic to joy. The Bethlehem experience was life-changing for me. And I hope it is for you too. Don't just treat this as just another nice story for this time of year. It's a lot deeper than that, and it can mean an awful lot more than that. I'm disappointed about one thing, though. You know, growing up, I always thought my first son would have a more modern name, like Lucas or Harry. It's quite topical. But you know, in the circumstances, given what the prophets had foretold, we decided to go along with their pointing forward. And so, in that makeshift maternity room so many years ago, we called our first son Jesus.